Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment. We are missing one of our crew today. Pastor Jim Wiegand is not with us today. He's got the week off, and he'll be back with us next week. But we have a special guest with us today, somebody that I consider a dear friend now. Started off several years ago as a client and has just become one of my favorite people in the whole world. And his name is Lewis Brandon. Lewis, welcome. Thanks for being a part of the podcast today.
Thanks for inviting me, John. It's an honor to be here with you.
So, several days ago, I had written to some of our podcast listeners and watchers and just asked them, hey, what are some things that you think we should be talking about on the podcast? What are some things you'd like us to explore? And Lewis was one of the recipients of that note, and he came back with a great idea. And I've titled your great idea this Monday After the Big Day. And so we're going to talk about what it's like. Today we're going to explore what's it like to recover from the lead up, the build up,
Yeah,
and then the execution of a huge day at church. You know, and Easter Sunday was just a while back here, and
yeah.
and so that's kind of in our mind as we talk about this today. But before we get into that subject, Lewis, I'd really love for you to take a few minutes to introduce yourself to us. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now, where you pastor, a little bit about your church, and then I've got a couple of other questions, and then we'll dive right into the subject at hand.
Well, and John, you already alluded to this. We've known each other for years now. You're a part of my story, and I'm thankful for that. My family's thankful for that. And so I've learned things from you and some of your friends that have just been a real blessing and a benefit to me. But I've been the pastor here at Jordantown Wesleyan Church for 5 years now, and just thankful for what God is doing and the things that we've seen. People been baptized and making decisions for Christ, and just seeing change happen in people's lives. And so uh, it's been a good run so far. And Easter
Yeah.
was a blessing, really, to be able to celebrate and worship Christ through his resurrection then. So real
Yeah.
thankful for all of that.
So Jordantown Wesleyan is in a rural community. Would it be considered a rural community?
Yeah, if you come here, it's because you were looking for us, probably. We're near the mountains and open fields, and yeah,
Yeah. And God's just done a really incredible thing at Jordantown Wesleyan over the last 5 years. I think you told me when you started there, there's maybe 30 people in the church. Is that accurate? Do I
yeah,
have that number right?
that's close. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And now you're averaging up over 100
Wow.
on a Sunday, right? And it's just been cool to watch that progression. But you know what's been even more cool to me is the vibrance, the feel, the vibe of your church, you know, that there's something dynamic happening there. And you know, we care more about the health of a church, the
Right.
vibrance of a church, than we do the size of the church. We're not against big churches. We're not actively rooting for churches to be small.
Yeah.
But
Right.
what we are actively rooting for is for churches to be well, to be healthy, and to be vibrant. And I would say Jordantown Wesleyan is reflective of that.
Yeah, it's a team endeavor, building those systems and having people around you, the right people around you. It's just, and they become your friends. and family, and just thankful for healthy expressions of the church to be a part of it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about Easter Sunday for you. What was it like?
So, I mean, we've just had this season where we've been seeing people come, new faces on Sundays, and part of the planning beforehand is, how are we going to fit people? And
Mm,
um, you have to plan for the reasonable, but you have to also plan for the far out as well on a day like
okay.
Easter. So you can have an idea of, hey, this is where we can land, but you know, we also know given our crowd and the people that come here, we could have this much more. So there's lots of planning that goes in ahead time for a Sunday like Easter, trying to be ready
Sure.
to serve the people and ultimately serve the Lord really as well. So, but yeah, so we look at all those things beforehand and try to do our best to be ready for it.
Yeah. So when you wrote back to me and responded to my email, I'm gonna read something if
Yeah,
that's okay
yeah,
that
please,
you
yeah,
wrote
it's
me in the
fine.
email. You said the church was packed. You poured your heart out into leading services. Things went well, yet we tend to get hung up on what didn't happen
Yes,
rather than what did happen. We
yeah,
have this vision for the big day, and Easter's probably the biggest day of
yeah,
the year for most churches. And you wrote this, it's rare for a leader with high expectations to see everything we plan for, pray for, or anticipate to actually happen.
that's right. Yeah,
And and talk to can you talk to that just a little bit?
yeah,
And then I've
yeah,
got some questions that I want to just
sure,
rattle off to you here. But yeah, talk to me about that thought progression that you shared with me.
sure. A great Sunday doesn't always lead to a peaceful Monday.
There you go. That's good.
And,
That's good.
I think as leaders, we have to have expectations to some degree,
Right.
goals that we're aspiring towards. But what do we do when we don't reach one of those? How do you
Mhm.
steward it? And
Yeah.
how do you manage that inner thought dialogue at that point?
Yes.
So that's a lot. I guess I'm not the only pastor that does that on a Monday,
You're not.
reflecting and thinking over those things. Yeah.
Yeah. And so let's talk about that for a minute, because there's emotion attached to this, right? So how does a pastor process emotions after a big Sunday like Easter? Give
Yeah.
me what are some thoughts that you have on that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think if for me, if I don't name what God did, I begin to only reflect on what I missed.
There you go. That's good.
So I've
Yeah.
got to celebrate those things where I saw his hand moving
Hmm.
because otherwise, I push myself in those moments and I want to do my best, give it my heart and soul. And, there's weeks that pastors really press on the message. And
Hmm.
Easter is one of those things because everybody knows what you're going to say. It's going to be something about the biggest event
Right.
in human history in some way.
Yeah.
And so we press on those things. There's a lot of energy build up leading into the moment. And then there's big energy in the moment of
Yeah.
itself. And, there's pastors that are elated on Monday, there's pastors that are
Yeah.
deflated on Monday. And the
Right.
task of a good Monday is healthy self management.
Yeah. I think that's so good because, and I would say that most pastors, whether it was a knockout Sunday, great record setting or not, Monday, there is this sense of big event
Yes.
aftermath, which some of it can be feeling a little sad or a little
Right.
depressed even. And so I love the idea that you postured of I gotta focus first on where I saw God
Amen.
in action. What went well.
Mm,
I think that's always the good place to start. I would suggest this. I would add this. Maybe you also want to maybe evaluate at some point, and maybe that's a different day.
mhm,
Maybe you don't do that on Monday. Um, Maybe you take a day later in the week when you've kind of recovered to
mhm,
evaluate what could have been better.
mhm.
Where might we have missed something that we shouldn't have missed? But I think the important piece is how we respond to that, right? So
That's good.
there's this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Lewis. I think there's this tendency for some pastors to be highly critical of themselves, or I
Mm,
should have, I could have, if I could do it over, and it turns into this loop.
yes.
How
Yeah.
how do you respond in a what have you learned? How have you learned to respond to that in a healthy way, those feelings of maybe coming up short?
Yeah. Allow yourself to pick a couple of things. Hey, I wish that would have went different. I might have misspoke there, or something didn't happen the way I wanted to. But then remind yourself this: evaluate the moment, not your worth.
Mm,
Don't evaluate
so
your
good.
calling. Don't evaluate your identity.
Mm,
Okay. Those things don't change on one Sunday. Those are lifelong purposes that God has led us into, and they unfold slowly over time. But our minds can get stuck in these moments when we let our minds rest in the wrong spot.
yeah, no, that's good. A good friend of mine, who is a pastor, messaged me on Easter Sunday evening, and he wrote this, and it made me laugh. He said, "He is risen. I am exhausted."
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that pretty much sums up
Yeah.
uh, the day after a big Sunday, right?
Right.
That
Yeah.
there's this elation over what that Sunday represents, what it means,
Sure.
and yet there is this expenditure of energy that happens, and usually Easter week there's extra energy expended because there's usually multiple services within that given week. So,
Mhm.
so Lewis, let's talk for a minute about, let's say one of our pastors or one of our watchers or listeners today, maybe more than one, struggles with this whole idea of responding to feelings of coming up short or
Mhm.
maybe not doing as great of a job as they had hoped. What are a few points of growth, perhaps, for pastors who find themselves wrestling with that? And I don't think this is just after Easter Sunday or after Christmas Sunday. I think some pastors, this is a weekly interrogation almost that they put themselves through. What do you feel like might be two or three growth points for somebody who's wrestling like that?
Yeah. Well, and I think something else to just say quickly, the
Okay.
elation of the full room might not silence your inner critic.
Mm,
The fullness, the excitement, you could still
yeah.
carry things with you. So we're just going to have to learn how to contend in those moments. And one of the ways that I do that is I allow myself some space for honesty, but I also intentionally look at scripture and make sure that I'm practicing some kindness.
Toward yourself.
Absolutely. And I
Okay.
think the key thing for pastors we've got to get this kindness component right in those
Yes.
moments because that's going to affect how we talk to others about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this whole idea of practicing self-compassion, um,
Mm,
being kind to yourself, being your own best friend instead of your own worst critic.
right.
And I've been teaching and preaching a long time, maybe longer than you've been alive, my friend. It's quite possible. And I've never preached a perfect sermon.
Mm,
I've never given a perfect talk.
right.
And here's the deal. I never have to because I don't have to be perfect for God to use me. And that reminder, I get some of the best compliments when you know what it's like when you're preaching and sometimes you feel like your client pushing a rock uphill when you're preaching. You
Yes.
can appreciate that, right? And we all have those moments,
Yeah.
no matter how well prepared, how prayed up we are.
Yeah.
I'm surprised how many times in those settings where I feel like I've been pushing a rock uphill the whole time, somebody would come up and say, "That's the best message I've ever heard in my life." And it's like, you got to be kidding me. How's that possible? But it's because God's at work and God doesn't need, he needs you to prepare. He needs you to pray.
Mm.
He needs you to do your homework, but you will never be perfect in the pulpit, and you don't have to be perfect in the pulpit. What do you think about that idea that I just laid out there?
You know, it just takes me back to one of the pivotal things that you've taught me and a lot of other people. Jesus comes out of the water, no miracles, no ministry being done publicly, no big acts. This is my beloved son with whom I'm
Hmm.
well pleased. It just has to be that we're being driven by our identity rather than something else.
Hmm.
And, you know, being loved by God, knowing that my best, my hardest work, my best effort, my time, my attention, that pleases him. And if I can please him, then I'm winning
That's
immediately.
right.
It's not about flawlessness, it's about faithfulness.
Yeah. And we could take the backward approach to that too. Like if I think I'm winning with the message, but I'm losing with God, I've lost, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not winning. So
right.
yeah, this practicing self-compassion. Pastor, um, in Matthew chapter 22, Jesus is asked what's the greatest commandment. And he doesn't even hesitate. He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength,
Mhm.
and love your neighbor in the same way you love yourself.
Yeah.
And foundationally,
Mhm.
learning how to extend the same degree of kindness you do to others to yourself will help you recover and process how you feel after a big Sunday.
Very
Um, Lewis, what else? What might be another growth point for a pastor or a leader who this is a wrestling match for them?
I think too, at some point, you might need to just branch out and experience some closeness from some other people,
Okay.
especially if your mind is just on the attack.
Yeah.
Get with somebody that you can just be friendly with. Don't
Yeah,
have to
that's good.
perform. I can just be there. We're going to drink a cup of coffee. They may see me as a pastor, but they love me as a person.
Yeah.
And that can be very helpful too, to kind of lean
Yeah.
into friendship in these moments.
I love it. That's so good. You had mentioned a couple of other thoughts to me. You said staying away from the comment section. What did you mean by that when you told me that?
Callings don't come from comment sections.
Hmm.
So you should I think there are moments that you need to be aware of what's happening, but then there are times you need to guard your heart and listen to God first.
Mm,
And then, awareness, I'm not saying deny or look away from something that might have went wrong at a moment, but there are times where we're evaluating on this level and regulating on a Monday and managing. You need to hear God.
yeah, and not your Facebook or Instagram feed,
Sure. Or yourself.
right?
That inner voice, John, First John talks about how our hearts can condemn us.
Right.
And this is one of those moments, after you've put out the energy, you've worked hard, you've given it your best, being a high expectation person, you might just say, well, I wanted more of myself in that moment. Well, you
Yeah.
gave all you had to give. And I
Right.
think he sees that.
Yeah. 100%. You know, we had in our email communication back and forth, you had mentioned this. One of the things that helps after a big Sunday is to manage the expectations of people versus actual results.
Right.
And how do you do that? Like, how would you start that process?
We have got to change the scorecard in the church. I think. I think we need to look at the expectations on pastors and make sure that they're scalable. Make sure that is it even possible in this area? And I know, we've got to be faith-filled thinkers and we need to be visionaries, but that needs to be held with a love and a mercy towards the person. This is Christ's servant. It's his son or his daughter. And so it all goes back to hearing God for me in many
Yeah.
ways. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we can make assumptions about families that didn't show up on Easter Sunday,
Yeah.
and why didn't they show up, and you can start to spiral, right?
All
And
right.
maybe they're not going to come back, or
Yeah.
maybe they're mad at me. What did I do wrong? If I was a better pastor, this wouldn't have I mean, and we can get into a spiral pretty quick with it.
John, do you think it would be fair to say that on Mondays after the big day, we're prone to assume the worst about the
I,
unknown?
and I think that's true because of the depletion. I think we
Mhm.
underestimate how much energy is expended when we uh, not only preach on a Sunday, but we interact with dozens and dozens and dozens of people. And so that may happen within a 2 hour window, but it is like a 10 to 12 hour day worth of energy being expended. And so we get to Monday, and naturally, the natural rhythm is we feel tired. And it's not just physical. I think it's not even as much physical tired as we do feel tired on the inside.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
just being aware of that, making space for that. I
Mhm.
remember as a lead pastor, I wouldn't schedule anything difficult on Monday. I didn't take Mondays off typically. Um, but I would do stuff that was not mentally demanding on Monday. I would take care of some of the stuff that I could do. It was fairly easy because I needed recovery. I needed a recovery day. And so I just think, people say things sometimes on a Sunday. So like on an Easter Sunday, let's say the crowd is less than you expected, and some people might just speak up about that, like, Pastor, where is everybody? And they're not
Yes,
being mean,
that's
they're
right.
but sometimes that can feel like a dagger to you. Like, I'm
Right.
well aware that they're missing. I don't, and I would never say this to anybody, but in your mind, you're thinking, I already know that, and it hurts me to think about it in the moment. Um, so I do think that there is this pressure I think we feel sometimes, especially on big Sundays, to be able to report record numbers, attendance, salvations, and the like. And if that's not our experience, Pastor, sometimes we look on social media and we see all these wonderful things being posted, which we're so happy about
That's right.
and so grateful for. But it has the capacity, has the potential to make us compare ourselves
Right.
in our church to what's happening there, and we can feel and you know, comparison never does anything healthy for us. It either makes us feel superior or inferior.
That's right.
And so, okay, I want to flip it and make this really like practical now. What
Mm,
are some practical things a pastor can do to recuperate
mm.
after a big Sunday?
Sunlight,
Yes.
walk.
Challenging in Michigan here in the winter, but I'm I agree.
I think we downplay the importance of the simple and we miss the benefits.
Okay.
A park, just some place that you could do light work, that you could engage in some tasks that are important so that the spiral mentally is productive, those
Yeah.
places.
I think getting your body moving is a really therapeutic thing to do. Grabbing a cup of coffee at a coffee shop
Right.
somewhere.
Yeah.
I think those are good things to do. Um, you know, some pastors take Monday and they read, and I would say I would encourage you to read something fun on Monday. You know, like I wouldn't necessarily recommend you read the 21 Laws of Leadership or something like that. Not that I'm against that. That's a great book. Um, but you get my drift. Like it's probably Monday's probably not a day to be taking more ground. I think it's a day to care for yourself well, and I think there's just some physical things we can do.
Love it.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, Lewis, that on a Monday after a big Sunday, being with certain people can be
Yes.
therapeutic. What about how does the exhaustion a pastor might feel after a big Monday affect their family? How could it affect them?
I think we need to talk about this in ministry a lot more than we do. And that's how do you steward that moment? You
Yeah.
know, you've been in front of a huge crowd the day before, maybe one of the biggest crowds you've seen all year. They're gone on Monday, but your family still needs a father.
Hmm.
And I think we're teaching our kids in those moments some
Yeah.
very valuable things. And one of the things that I focus on, so I'm tired, I've worked hard. I just focus on being present, eye contact, being a non-anxious presence.
Hmm.
I was at a conference one time, and one pastor, every day that he pulled in at home, he would pray as he just sat there in his car for 5 to 10 minutes. Lord, help me start my most important ministry now.
That's good.
I'm doing my
Yeah.
real job now.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's the part of me that is just there in a profound, life-giving way. That's what my family needs.
Yeah. And I love this idea of engaging the Lord in short prayers. You don't have to pray for an hour
Mhm.
to get to be able to accomplish that. I think it's acknowledging God, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I don't feel like there's much in the tank,
Right.
but my family needs me today. Please help me. Help me
Yes.
to be kind. Um, Help me, God, to be patient. Help me to know when I need to ask for space. Like I am tired. I need some time to myself.
That's right.
Uh, and
Yeah.
it, and that's just good self-management
Mm.
and and self leadership. Um, and there's, we like pastors to move their bodies, and we talk about that a lot. I think Monday's a great day if you live in, if it's warm enough to go hit uh, the golf course. Nothing like taking your frustrations out on a ball, or you're stressed out on a white ball. And the only thing you have to think about is how do I get this white ball into that hole over there, and that's it. And and really, I think the whole gist of this is, pastors, we want you to be proactive. We want you to be mindful that when you come off a big event, uh, there is going to be uh, there is going to be depletion physically, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. And just acknowledging that you need time for recuperation. Um, I'm a weightlifter, and I do strength training, but I only do it 4 days a week because when you lift weights, you tear muscle fiber, and that muscle fiber needs time to heal the torn muscle fiber. And I would say that in on Sundays, on big event days especially, there's a lot of emotional muscle tear fibers being torn, and they need time to heal. And so, Pastor, give yourself grace, give yourself space and time. Um, you know, Lewis, um, you've been doing this for a while now. You've been pastoring for a while. I mean, if you could just say one encouraging word or sentence, or a sentence or two, to pastors who are watching and listening now about this subject of the Monday after the big day, what would you encourage them with?
I think one, remind yourself that results are nice, but they're no replacement for a life-giving relationship with Jesus.
Hmm.
And, there's going to be a day where you're not getting these results. You've retired or you're doing something different.
Right.
You need to have him. You need him now and you need him then.
Yeah.
And really the key to joy is being connected to him.
Right.
He takes care of the fruit. So if it didn't happen, rejoice that you get to swing the bat again another
There
time.
you go.
If it
That's
did
right.
happen, give him the glory and the honor because he did it and he used you. Thank him for it. Rejoice in that.
And I think Jesus actually did that. He sent the 72 out, and they came back rejoicing and saying, even the demons submit to us in your name. And Jesus rejoiced with them. He said, but listen, I really want you to understand, be more excited that your names are written in heaven.
Right.
That's the bigger prize here. Um, and that's the thing that um, is stable, whether we're having a good Sunday or we don't have a good Sunday. Our names are written in heaven. And, you and I, Lewis, aren't pastors first.
Yeah.
We're sons, adopted sons first, who just
Mhm.
happen to pastor. You pastor a church, I pastor pastors. And and so we want to encourage you today that you can be strong, you can do this well. We think it's important for you to be mindful of how to come off of this mountain of a big Sunday and process not just the logistical things, the wins, maybe some of the things that could have been better on Sunday. That's important, but more important is processing what's going on inside of my head and inside of my heart and giving myself space to recover uh, in a way, in a context of kindness and graciousness toward ourselves. So, Lewis, thank you for being here today. I have one last question for you, and then we'll wrap up. How has coaching played into your progression here with this
Yeah.
subject?
Yeah. We can all grow. We can all improve. We can learn things. The thing that I've found about coaching is that there are times that the coach will come in and say, all right, here's some plays to run. But the joy of that is that the coach gives you the plays and says, you run with this. Oh, and by the way, you can do this. Follow these steps or think about this way. So I would say that it's just expanded what I've been capable of in some regards. And part of that is just a journey of growing and healing and becoming a healthy person. But
Yeah,
another part of that is skills that we can learn. So don't and you know we talk about expectations a lot. You don't have to accept being unhealthy. You just
mm,
don't have to accept it. And I think there's a way to do this good on Mondays. There's a way to do it
yeah,
bad, but there's a way certainly to do it good.
yeah,
And we can learn to do that with, in some cases, the right help is absolutely necessary
right.
to get a good experienced person speaking into your life. Just like in Little League, you know, that coach wanted to see you swing the bat and help the team win. And, you know, that's what a good mentor will do. They'll teach you to respond differently in those
Yeah.
moments.
And I would add, from a coaching perspective, that we're we're of this mind that we are not going to tell you what to think. We're going to create space for you to learn how to think.
Yeah.
Because we think if you learn how to think and how to process, that you'll be able to unpack a lot of scenarios just
Mhm.
between you and the Lord and your own skill set. Now, when you get stuck, you dial a number, right? Uh, when you're dealing with a burden too heavy for one person to carry, you do that. Um, but we have watched you grow in 6 years. I've coached you for a bit. Some of our other coaches have coached you for a bit, and to see you today and where you were 6 years ago, the transformation has been pretty incredible. And we would say to you that you've done 98% of that heavy lifting, and that would be the truth. That you really put in the work, you put in the effort, and so it's really a treat for me to have you on our podcast. Um, and to listen to the growth, the development that's happened in your life. And plus, it's just good to hang out with you because, again, I consider you a dear friend. So thank you for your time today, Lewis. We pray blessings over you and your family and the church that you lead, and looking forward to seeing you again soon. Any last words before I wrap up?
Just a word of gratitude for you and the good work that you're doing. Um, the results are changed lives.
Hmm.
And so we're
Well,
just thankful for that. And likewise, we want to pray for an increase of pastors being genuinely healthy people and being able to walk out in the fullness of their calling, loving Jesus the whole time.
Yeah. So, pastor, leader, you're watching or listening today, and you feel stuck, maybe, or maybe you don't want to get unstuck. You just want to grow. As Lewis said, you want to add some skills. Uh, Reach out to us, convergecoach.com. There's a button on the main page that says start a conversation. And that you click on that button, fill out some information, and that gives you 30 minutes, no obligation, free 30 minutes with one of our coaches. And who knows, maybe in 30 minutes we'll come to some good conclusions, and that's all you're going to need. And but if you need more help, then we'll be able to help you sort through that. But we want to encourage you to be kind to yourself, to learn how to process the great energy expenditure that you do every weekend, actually. And we're here to help. We're here to cheer for you, root for you, help you to process in a space that's safe and confidential. ConvergeCoach.com. And so we are rooting for you. We're praying for you. And we believe in you. We're cheering for you as you continue to lead from alignment.